Yesterday, we saw teams fighting tooth and nail for their postseason positioning. Time to see which squads will break out with our games today. Fans are hungry for hype games. We'll see if Huni and Echo Fox deliver against Counterlogic Gaming. Here they are making their way to the stage just moments ago. Hello and welcome to the NA LCS Countdown, where for 30 minutes we track the last few games until playoffs and play franchise manager until the timer reaches 0 and we jump into Champions Select. Lost an hour of sleep last night. You guys still full of energy, ready to go though?
Great. I didn't realize Huni had one of those little knobs on his phone to hold it.
Yeah, those are the new craze, man. I'm seeing them everywhere. But
he wasn't using it for a selfie.
I think it is Team Liquid who has them. I saw an Olay one, like literally with an Olay face on it on the back.
I'm gonna try it out.
Anyway, we detract. But let's go ahead and take a look at what games we have in store today. Up first, Echo Fox look to take down Counterlogic Gaming, rather. Later on, in Game 3, Clutch fight for a playoff bye when they face Team Liquid, followed by TSM vying for a spot in the top 6 versus Cloud9. Now, earlier, Zix shared why he's not nervous in his match today versus the first-place team.
I'd really like to say that it was like kind of a fresh start for us when the patch hit. We changed our shot calling, and we had to change like a lot of our picks and how we thought about the game. So we spent a really long time in a meeting talking about how we wanted to really play it out and how we best see ourselves playing it out. I'm feeling pretty good. Their bottom lane's looking really abusable right now, and since we've been pressuring a lot of bottom lanes, it's looking like it's going to be a pretty good style matchup against Echo Fox, so I'm pretty confident going into that match.
Well, against all odds, CLG continue their run for playoffs, and Zix pinpointing the bottom lane as kind of the point of weakness for Echo Fox that they can attack. Yeah, I mean, based on where the point of strength for CLG has been, I feel like that's just where they attack every team. It just so happens that Echo Fox's bottom lane has been attackable, and kind of want to reemphasize the turnaround that CLG has had in the last 3 games. They were on a 6-game losing streak. We were doing segments talking about how their season was definitely over because there's no way they're going to turn this around. And they beat Cloud9, they beat Liquid. It felt like that said, Jad, I don't know if you noticed this pattern. Lose 3, win 3, lose 3. Lose 3, win 3.
And win the next 3.
And win the next 3, according to we'll see.
Pattern, right?
We'll see.
That's a little weird way of thinking about it. Like, their comeback hasn't been that normal either. Like the Cloud9 game, they were super far behind and found a way back into it. FlyQuest was much the same way, where it's a 6K gold deficit. They lost 2 dragons, 3 barons. They lost an elder and a dragon at this time. They lost like 3 inhibs. So a lot of their wins are not coming easy either.
Right. No, definitely not. And Echo Fox as well has suffered a couple losses recently. So this is a team, you know, that was out at blazing speed on the first half of the split, slowing down a bit here on the back half.
They absolutely have. They're 3-3 in their last 6. They haven't had those 2-0 weeks you come to expect from them. It always seems to be a loss into a win. And we haven't really said that their losses have been damning, because this was a loss that we wouldn't really attribute to draft or the bottom lane. They were up against a Caitlyn. They actually held that turret long enough to have already broken the top lane turret and most of the mid lane turret. And it was really kind of about the late game where they lost, which was the first time that's happened.
Yeah, it was the first time that they had lost a game 25 minutes with a 3,500 gold advantage. So this is something where we have never seen them before have these kind of advantages. There were a lot of skirmishes in the mid game that just actually didn't break their way when pretty much every time previously they have. So I think that's more of an indication of how well Clutch was playing than Echo Fox.
Now looking at that match 25 minutes ahead of game time, and Arrow shared how 8.4 highlighted the team's weaknesses.
We had a lot of issues, honestly, before the patch even changed, but I think the patch change definitely kind of exemplified those and made them even more of a problem. So we've been focused on them for a while, and we're just slowly adapting and trying to fix it. Yeah, I mean, Tony's my boy, but we pretty much need that win. We want to secure top 2, so we have to end it for him.
What are your thoughts there?
Wants to end it, and I do like how Nero acknowledges some of the team's weaknesses. His boy Tony, Zix, however you want to call him.
Zix.
Talking about Pink Awards.
But our producer's having an aneurysm backstage right now.
Anyway, he was picking his bottom lane, Callista, in so many of those previous games. It wasn't a problem.
Right.
They had a very similar way of winning all of their games, and those ways aren't as easy to do on patch 8.4, and he recognizes that, and it's good that they're not just saying the losses are unlucky, but that they're actually working towards solutions.
Very much so. Now, as CLG continue their hunt for a playoff spot, let's go ahead and take a look at who they have to get through in the standings. Currently, Cloud9 and Echo Fox are tied for first, while Clutch Gaming sits 1 game behind them in third. Yesterday, 100 Thieves secured their spot in the postseason by picking up their 9th win of the split, while Team Liquid and TSM aim to do the same today. Looking at the teams at the bottom, though, who fell short, I want to pivot to franchise mode, where your objective is to take a team and get them to playoffs come summer. So this is off-season moves, trades, anything that they need to do to get these teams whipped into shape come summer to make playoff runs. Team we're going to start with is Optic Gaming.
I think when you look at this team, you see a lot of strengths in how they play their games. They have a number of games that were very close that they ended up losing. I think their core of Power of Evil, Arrow, and Acadian is good enough to make playoffs if they shore up some of their other potential weaknesses, which I think you have to look at the side lanes as places they need to upgrade.
Yeah, and specifically, you look at Arrow, who's a former league MVP a year ago, and he needs some more help to be unlocked in that lane. So we know there are some talented supports in the Academy League. The Academy League didn't necessarily exist last year. They're also worried about the promotion tournament beforehand. So teams weren't thinking about this until much, much later. So if we're in this theoretical, like, video game franchise mode, I'm trying to find maybe someone like Zazel from Cloud9 Academy. Bring him in, see how he does. See if you can also work with Lemon, maybe do a 6-man roster. And what's interesting, even though they've subbed out Zig with Dokla a lot, I think with the current crop of top laners, you probably keep Zig. We've seen him be successful before. I think he can potentially get successful later, and it's also a somewhat meta-dependent player.
We've seen him get third on P1 before, so I think Zig might have had a bad split this time, and we don't have anyone in Academy, having cast it all, like, we don't have anyone who's clearly like, get this guy, quite like for C9's Academy team. Zazel is this standout player that everyone has pegged as the guy to watch out for come summer.
So that would be in the support position. We're looking to kind of hold over Zig to summer and see how well he can grow into a player, maybe with more support behind him. Next up, FlyQuest.
And this is a team that actually has had a lot of roster moves over the course of their split thus far, and some of them have worked and some haven't. I think Fly is someone you have to evaluate of their value as an import player. He has come in, he looked good for a little while when it was a more roaming-focused meta, but now that the mid laners have a lot more individual carry potential, he feels like he's struggling a little bit.
Yeah, and I look at some of the other positions on this team. I don't think you want to do anything with Flame. He's been performing very well. Wild Turtle still actually has been pretty solid, but it's about that middle support jungle that has been shifting around a lot for them. Keen is on their roster. And has shown that he's been pretty good in the LCS. And that would open up a lot of flexibility if you wanted to then have Onda be part of the roster, but also try and switch in some other import junglers. Because as soon as you remove that import restriction, the pool of players gets much larger of potential people that could try and slot in.
And maybe this is just the splashy move that everyone wants. You could grab 100 Thieves Academy jungler Levi, who we've all seen on the international stage as well. He's still struggling down there a little bit, acclimating to the English North American environment, but bring him in, potentially Onda move down to Academy. Then you would have a stronger mid-jungle duo with Keen, you would hope. Shrimp is also down there too, so maybe you just bring that duo back in, which we saw them try a little bit, but it didn't quite work out in that old meta.
Last team I want to talk about is Golden Guardians.
Yeah, and this is a team who has actually shown a decent amount of improvement. So I wouldn't call for huge changes, but I would call for some pretty serious conversations.
Okay.
Specifically around High, because we know that he has a leadership voice on the team, but I feel like with the current state of his laning play and how often he falls behind, that puts a low ceiling on the team. So either you need to tell High that he needs to improve that heavily and put the other things to the side, or you need to start trying out some other mid laners and hope the team play can transfer over.
It's the kind of thing where they probably know better than we do, obviously, how much value High is bringing specifically. Does he want to move to a coach position? Does he want to role swap or something? These are all ideas you can look at, but if you're talking about bringing in an import player, there's Mickey in Academy, who is nuts. He's completely crazy, not both good and bad, makes a lot of plays, loses a lot of lanes because of it. And then potentially do the typical North American thing, grab a European player. Juzuki in the mid lane looks great. Get that guy.
Yeah, we're good at that.
One thing that I think is kind of cool about this now that these three teams are eliminated from playoff contention is we've never been in this environment before.
Right.
We've always had teams trying to gear up for the promotion tournament or avoid falling into 9th or 10th.
Protecting yourself from relegation.
Yeah, and we've also never had as many players in the academy system. We have 50 players that have been playing essentially an LCS schedule on Thursday and Friday for academy. So I really want to see, if anything happens in the offseason, what moves these teams decide to make.
Just a few ideas floated around for what these teams can do in the offseason. We do have to take a quick break. When we return, we try our hand at some more tier lists. Jat frustrates us with some numbers, and these two share their win conditions for Game 1. As we go to commercial, though, players share their thoughts on that CLG versus Echo Fox matchup.
So it's a little bit of an anime plotline where we have to win all of our games, going from 10th place to 6th, getting the last playoff spot. If there's any time to try out stuff, it's now because the odds are against us for sure.
Counter Logic Gaming when all hope was lost to give the first defeat of the season to Echo Fox.
Next time, I think they will be like really careful about making a lot of mistakes and handing us a win.
I'm not really too concerned about CLG. Last time, we made like an uncharacteristic mistake positioning around objective.
If we get ahead, it's going to be a really fast and easy game.
We have a lot to pay them back for. Hopefully we can make up for a smash that they should have gotten.
Welcome back to the NA LCS Countdown. I was tired a moment ago, not so much anymore because we got a very energetic crowd here with us today.
Always the Jets.
I love it.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know why they're cheering for you.
I appreciate it.
All right, here we go. Yesterday, we did ADC tier list, so we felt it was only right to finish out the bot lane. So today, we're going to be taking a look at the supports across the league. Immediately, the first thing I noticed is actually how much more similar your guys' lists are here for the supports than they were for the ADCs.
Yeah, and we talked about the difficulty of evaluating AD carries because their teamfight output is so tied to what their team does. A lot of times, to me, the support is kind of the thing that sets up the AD carry for his output. So that's easier for me to evaluate. Both in lane, supports lead the plays, and in teamfights, oftentimes are initiated.
And it's a great meta for it as well. There's so much playmaking from the support position. You see a lot of that, and that's why this list, I feel like it's easier to highlight who's performing well and who's struggling.
That said, let us reiterate that this is purely based off of performance from the first 15 games of the split. This isn't who we want on our team. It's not who we're drafting first or anything like that.
Yeah, it's not who's going to play better tomorrow.
Exactly. It's all based off of the evidence of this split up to this point. So getting right into it, you both have Smoothie occupying the top spot.
Yeah, and especially after the first half of this split, Smoothie was one of the front runners for MVP, has fallen off a little bit slightly, but since this is a cumulative effect of the first 15 games, you cannot discount how much pressure this guy has put out in lane, how much he's contributed to his team's strategy, both in vision and in initiation. He has been super solid for this team.
All right, moving right along, the next two guys, you've got him flip-flopped. Aphromoo and Hakuho. Let's start with Aphromoo.
So for Aphromoo, the reason I have him over Hakuho is just how important he is as a member of this team, not just in the playmaking. They feel like they win whenever he pops off on that Thresh, on that Blitz, Rakan, those things. But it also feels like a lot of the games where they get into late game situations, he is the definitive calming voice that sets up their plans. And so that little bit of intangible factor is why I have him higher than Hakuho, who you don't hear praised as much for, like, he's the guy who's leading our team.
Yeah, and I do have a lot of mixed emotions about Aphromoo and Hakuho, and I had kind of swapped them a few times in making this list. But the thing that moved Hakuho just a little bit above Aphromoo for me was the percentage of shots that he hits, so to speak. So Aphromoo is a huge playmaker. So is Hakuho, actually, when you're paying closer attention to the games in the late game decisions, but he dies a lot less, and I think has fewer failed initiations than we see from Aphromoo. So both of these guys are super great. I think it was a really close decision, but I edged Hakuho a little bit because he makes the bad play less often.
Came down to execution for you, but seeing similar, strengths from both
super good
players. Moving right along, I mean, Biofrost sitting in that fourth position. A lot of people might be surprised to see somebody on a team that had been struggling so much throughout the split be this high on the list.
I think he was one of the clear players still playing pretty well during that period when CLG was struggling a lot. And then when they turned things around, it was due to their bot lane starting to smash, which usually it's Biofrost leading. And then they talked about how they gave him big shot calling responsibilities. They upped what was on his plate, and he stepped up accordingly. So I think he has become one of the better ones by a pretty significant margin in the second half of the split while still being relevant in the first.
All right, so Biofrost stepping up. Let's move right along to Adrian. Of course, the bot lane for Echo Fox has been a point of weakness. We've thrown a lot of criticism their way, and yet he's still here mid-pack.
Yeah, and it is tough to evaluate the Echo Fox bottom lane because so much of this team is centered around the top and mid parts of the map. And Adrian has often been on winning teams, which is, even when you look at some of the underperformance of that team recently, I don't put all of that on Adrian. His laning has been quite good. A lot of his teamfight decisions are very strong, and he's always towards the very top of the league in warding stats.
All right, Mark, let's talk about this last guy here, Ole. He was a front runner for MVP conversations last year, and yet seems to be struggling quite a bit this time around.
I think this pains all of us to put him down this low, but when you look at his impact in games, you look at the stats, there's really not much that you can do to praise him compared to who he was last split. There's clearly synergy issues between him and Doublelift. They, instead of amplifying each other and really improving and unlocking each other, it seems like there's a bit of synergy issues between them holding Ole's playmaking down.
Yeah, there seems to be almost a different player that has the nameplate Ole, depending on the game or the champion that he's on. So he's had 1 or 2 games that were amazing, but he's had a lot of mediocre and below average games this split, way more than he's had in the past.
Looking for more out of him. Yeah. Now we're going to do something a little fun. We're going to take you guys' lists from yesterday, going to smash them together. We're going to take your list from today, we're going to smash them together. And we're going to create basically an aggregate, an average bot lane tier list based on where you had put these players. So now I want to get your reaction.
Oh, man.
These guys have not seen this list yet, so they didn't know how it was going to pan out. This means that C9's bot lane is the top bot lane in the league, followed by 100 Thieves, and then TSM of all teams, if you can believe it.
So Sven and Mithy look a little high based off of what I've seen from them when you kind of aggregate them together. And I think it's funny that there's a 3-way tie for 4th as well between Clutch teams.
Right.
Is it an exact tie?
I would assume as much.
We put in?
Yep.
Yeah, it feels like Alltech and Adrian probably a little bit low as well. I think they are one of those duo lanes that if you rank them individually, maybe don't stand out quite as much, but they do work together in the environment of Echo Fox pretty well.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time with them. And then
I'm a little surprised to see Wild Turtle Slut be 10th.
Yeah, that is one that I think just happens based on the cumulative average of the ranks. We both had Stunt 9 as support. There's a lot of inconsistency of where we rank Turtle. Even though when I think of those guys in lane, they win a lot of matchups. I think bottom lane has actually been very competitive this split in the North American LCS in general.
All right, I'm going to push us right along to Jad Stats, another frustrating segment for me and Mark.
Yeah, and actually, Dash, it's been frustrating for you. We have pulled together a highlight reel, perhaps, of your reactions to Miss Jad Stats throughout the year. Let's take a look.
All right, well, now comes a time where I have to step out of my comfort zone a little bit here and hand over the reins to Jad for a new segment entitled Jad Stats. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fair. It's
Damn it!
Okay, fair enough.
What?
It's
Damn it!
Okay, last
this
one.
segment's gonna get so depressing.
We're gonna end up at
I'm on the board.
Jad Stat.
No!
Damn it!
Damn it!
Jad, what do you got for us today?
Damn it! Damn it!
Can we work together on this, Mark?
Do you want?
I hate that you're leaving me out to dry.
I tried
love
competitive.
this was like a team
It's
effort.
cooperative. I'm sorry. It was game.
It wasn't top laner.
It was a top laner.
I'm sorry, Jake.
Yeah, there as
I
well.
need a new partner.
Damn it! Damn it!
Mark got it.
Damn it!
Watch it.
I swear to God!
Am I helping you again?
I don't helping me
They're
again. Have you ever helped me in this?
I think you guys can get some of them this week.
Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! That's why we stopped on the board. That's why we stopped
On the
keeping
board.
score. Notice that there's no tallies at the bottom of the score.
These are hard.
A more collaborative effort today.
Oh my
Do you
God.
want?
think
Do you
it's
want
done.
my help or not?
That is gonna haunt.
Also,
That's gonna
if
haunt me
anyone wants
forever.
more of that to take it home, there is a ringtone of Dash, a damn it ringtone.
Damn it!
You can download
I
it.
swear to
Follow
God!
the link.
Damn it! Damn it! What? I swear to God!
You're gonna scare people with that ringtone.
So just, if anyone wants to, you can.
Oh, I'm
Little piece of
so
LCS and
done.
Jazz Stats for
I'm
home.
so done.
All right, we got Jazz Stats today.
I like how you tilt him
Bring
before.
it on, baby.
Yeah, we've
Can't
had a
do
lot
worse than
of
that.
playoff talk. We only have 3 games left. It is technically possible for a team to make playoffs with an 8-10 record this split. If Team Liquid loses out and still makes playoffs, if CLG goes 1-2 or TSM does the same thing. The question is, how many teams have made playoffs with an under 500 record since 2015 when we switched to the 10-team format? How many times has a team done that as 8-10?
Okay, so there's been
How many even splits have
5.
there been?
So that'd be
Yeah,
2015,
there's
2016,
been 6
2017,
splits.
6 splits. Are we okay?
How many
I'm gonna
times has a
go-
team been under 9-9 and made playoffs? So an 8-10 team making playoffs.
2.
I'll say 3. We'll split up a little bit.
It's 2. Dash
Is
actually
that
got it.
is that his first time getting one that I did?
Yes.
That's the first
Can
time
I
he got
drop
one that
this
I did.
mic? I'm really oh man, my
All right.
audio guys just told me I couldn't
All
drop
right.
the mic. I'm
Next
so
one,
sad
multiple
about
choice. We're talking about top lane keystones. So
Is
it's a
Envy both
gameplay-focused question. Envy both times in 2016 and 2017.
That's a-
Which keystone rune has been taken most by top laners this split? It is a multiple choice question right here. So we have A, Kleptomancy, B, Summonary, C, Unsealed Spellbook, or D, Grasp.
Ooh, this is interesting because
Oh wait, so this is over the whole split in top lane?
Top laners most selected keystone
God, this is
rune.
so hard because you got the GP Fiora Klepto days,
Yep.
but I don't think that that's been played the most.
no, I don't
So
think
then
so.
you're looking at Airy from Gnar.
But he takes other things too. They take fleet footwork.
Right,
You sometimes
exactly.
take
So
other
that probably
stuff.
got disrupted. So I'm tempted to say Spellbook, but that feels like the obvious answer.
Right, and Grasp is taken in a lot of different matchups by different tanks.
And I would imagine more now because of tanks, but not so much in the earlier half of
You
the
wanna
split.
split this?
So
You
I think
wanna-
it's either Airy or Spellbook, funnily enough.
I'm going to take C then. I grabbed C first.
You son of a...
I already took it.
Dash, are you going to go with
But
Mark
that means
or your own answer?
I want to go with
All right,
C. Okay, we're going together.
Yeah,
we live and die
together.
together. Let's go. C.
You should have split it. It's airy.
Damn it!
It always happens that way.
I don't know. Whenever you try and do anything,
You're worse.
Whenever you try and do anything,
stop listening.
I thought you were going to get these ones. I thought the first few were actually somewhat easy, so good job getting one and almost the other one. This one's definitely harder.
All right, let's do it.
It has to do with executes in regular season NA LCS history. So someone running into a turret, someone dying to Rift Herald.
Well, I know there were 4.
Is this one?
I can think of one game where there were 4.
Random guess. I'll give you a hint after you throw out a random number. Like, just try and guess it.
I'm going to go
17.
All right. Those are wrong,
close.
both of them. I have a hint for you.
Okay.
So it's the same number as M&M's in this jar.
Okay, hold on. Hold it.
Yeah.
Hold it.
You can take a look.
What's the volume of the jar? How big is the average M&M?
Yeah.
We're about
I'm gonna go with
3/5 full. So
10, 11, 12, there's about 15
20. I'm going to 26.
I think there's 26
15
M&Ms
times
in there.
5.
I don't know, dude.
So that's
What
going to
kind
be
of question
75.
is
I'm going to
that?
go no, that's less
How
than
many
75.
ping pong
I'm
balls
gonna
can you
go-
fill up a bus with?
I'm going to go 50. 50.
81.
81. Oh, 75 would have been a good guess.
Would have been close.
I should have trusted my mental math days from,
Yeah, you can keep
from
those
elementary
because you
school.
got the only correct jazz stat
I mean,
today anyway.
peanut M&M's,
or
solid
give some to
choice.
our producer, Ace.
We
That's it,
got to
jazz
push
stats.
forward. We're
Good job.
running out of time, guys. Let's take a look at predictions. I just also want to point out that, wait, we tied. We tied.
No, I didn't get any right.
He
You
got
beat me.
none right.
I thought you went for...
you beat me, buddy.
Oh, right, we both went spellbook. I beat Mark, guys. I'm the better analyst. All right, let's take a look at predictions. What you guys got for today? Only one difference, and it comes in game 2.
You picked TSM?
Oh my God.
Chat, you're surprised he picked the same
That was
team
my
as you
upset
somewhere?
pick.
You picked FlyQuest? How about that?
Yeah, let's talk about Golden Guardians versus FlyQuest.
That's a tough game for sure. I just thought Golden Guardians had been on this big upward trajectory, and they looked almost like an early split version of Golden Guardians yesterday, whereas FlyQuest, they had every reason to win that game against CLG, so I'm thinking if they get that lead again, they can close against Golden Guardians.
I agree. Golden Guardians looked bad yesterday. They were playing 100 Thieves, who are a pretty good team. They've been winning a lot of games recently, so I didn't hold that against them too much, whereas FlyQuest is like, how did you lose that game? Which looks pretty bad to me.
So that's going to decide who's ahead going into last week of predictions.
Exactly.
Here we
One
go.
of you is going to have a 1-point lead going into the final week, but we want to do something fun as well and take a look at your guys' prediction percentages based on the teams that you're predicting. So, to
93.
explain this a little bit more fully, any game that one of these teams has played in, obviously each of these guys has made a prediction. This is their accuracy predicting win or loss that team's game. So, Jat, 93% prediction rate on Optic games is pretty big.
And I'm worse at predicting CLG games than
Your
CLG
faith
is at
blinds
winning
you.
games.
That's pretty, yeah, you are.
1/3 of CLG games I predict properly. That team
So what's
just have to
interesting to
smash.
me, Jad, is how big your spread is from 93% to 33%, whereas Mark's sitting here 73 to 40.
Yeah, like my fifth, sixth place team's at 60. That's his fourth. I would like to, extrapolate.
What does that mean?
I think that's the question. I'm smarter. I'd like to say
you're more consistent.
Right.
More consistent.
And then
to
Jack
say the
just
least.
randomly messes up CLG because he's biased.
All right, anyway, more than anything, just kind of fun stats to look at, but I'm going to keep chugging along. We get to that point in the game where, hey, sometimes it's up to big plays to make it happen. Sometimes, it's the macro game or the knowledge or the understanding or the synergy and the teamwork. Sometimes there are outside forces at work. Sometimes it's an analyst who will just will you to victory, only to say, I'm helping. Brought to you by State Farm.
I don't know why I get the hate here from this team, but apparently I'm calling them out. So this is my chance. They're like, please win this game. I am picking them now.
All right, how do they do it? How do they?
Oh my God, Mark said we would win. Really? I'm not even kidding you. Oh my God. Guys, this is the time. This is it.
Right.
We got to do it for Mark. I'll do it for Mark.
Adrian that could be a kill. That could be feasted. That could be a dead Adrian. The chop comes in. The damage. Finally, a kill comes through. 3 to 4. Flashing away. But they got Phoenix. QSSU's the duel against Apollo. Who's going to win it? Flashing away. Femin now in the play. The ulti coming across. The MR is so high, but the damage comes through.
There's. Go in. And. Oh, Maxi! Holy.
Marx is the savior.
Maxi! Let's go.
How does it feel? There it is. Take a bow.
If any team would like to, pay me maybe to predict them.
I don't know about that one. You are the first caster to get 9 helping, though. We're going to move on to win conditions. The final thing we do before we kick off the day, CLG versus Echo Fox in the back here. We're going to start with Echo Fox. Let's talk some win conditions.
So despite their recent loss yesterday, which was one that we kind of talked about, not really following the trend of their bot lane getting smashed. That is still a concern for me, especially with how CLG is playing. So the thing they need to do is find 8.4's Kalista. That was a pick that they were using previously to get a lot of autonomy in their bot lane, get a good matchup, and then they could just leave it on an island while they focus the top side of the map. This patch, that feels like Caitlyn maybe, but they want something that's going to be safe and strong in the lane that they don't need to babysit very much.
All right, Jat, what's the response?
Yeah, so for CLG, I think they have been winning around bottom lane, continue to make plays around bottom lane and Biofrost, but also to keep it simple. Like, don't pick a bunch of weird champions in the mid lane for Huhi. Don't try and gank top lane 17 times before 6 minutes. Like, just play around bot lane and get to team fights, and they'll be fine because they're good players, and they've shown that during their win streak.
All right, narrowing in on the last few games of the split, we're going to toss it up to the casters to get us into the games.